Okay, so the file we want to open up now is go to File, go to Open, and we're going to go to Browse, and then in the C drive, there's a folder called Data. Under the Data folder is where it should have unzipped those files. If you did the PK zip file, then you have to physically save it somewhere. But either way, you're going to go to the Data folder and click on the folder called Excel 365-1. And then here is the files we started with this morning. And the file we're looking for now is called the formula. And so we're going to start doing some formulas, and so running through formula capabilities. And then we have a little bit of homework assignment after the session. Go down and open up this file called formula. It looks similar to this. It's really important that everybody has this file open. So if you don't have this file, if you don't have it unzipped, make sure you get this file. So is there anybody that does not have this file open? So Keith is going to get in a second here. Let me just do a couple of preliminary things first. Maybe you can just watch me at this point and we can kind of get this kind of going. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to show you a couple interesting techniques of ways to correct your formulas. Well, one technique you can use is that if I were to do an Autosum on this, it's going to see this blank line and stop. So I'm going to click on my answer down here. I'm going to go to my Home ribbon tab, and there's an option here called Autosum right in the middle. If you hit the Autosum, see it doesn't actually grab the whole area. This is going to be a common problem you're going to have. There's 3 ways to correct this problem. One way would be to click on this corner right here and drag that corner up to redefine it. Now, I'm going to hit the Escape key on the keyboard because I want to abort and start over. I'm going to do it again. The second way to do this is to click in the middle of 1 and drag it down to redefine the area. A third way would be to simply select all 6 cells, hit the Autosum, and it puts the answer in there automatically. So we're going to review these little techniques I just showed you just now in a minute and where we have those problems. Now I'm going to come over to B9. Everybody click on B9. And we're going to press the Autosum function. So if you click on B9, always click on the answer first, hit the Autosum. It puts what's called a marquee and puts that around there. If that's the correct area that I want to add up, then I would hit the Enter key on the keyboard, and that would bring me down 1 cell. Now the problem with that is I don't want to come down, I want to go to the right. So click on cells C9, hit your Autosum, make sure it's bound to the proper area, and now we're going to hit the Tab key on the keyboard. So you're going to hit the Tab key, which is actually another way to accept it, but it actually puts it in the proper area. Now if I do another Autosum, I can either hit the Tab key or the Enter key. If I hit the Tab key, it actually puts me to the right. Now I'm going to go down to E5, click on cell E5 right now, hit your Autosum, and you see it grab the January, February, and March data. That looks correct. I'm going to hit my Enter key because I want to go down. Now, I'm going to do another Autosum. And it grabs the January, February, and March data. I'm going to hit my Enter key to have it go down 1. Now I'm going to hit the Autosum a 3rd time, but it grabbed the wrong area. This is where you need to redefine the area. So in this case, I would move my mouse over and I click right in the middle of 209, hold my left mouse button down and drag it to redefine that area. Then hit the Enter key. And then you want to hit the Autosum again and it grabbed the wrong area again. So I've got to use my mouse, click and drag just to D, and then let go, and then hit the Enter key to accept it. And then we're going to go to the Autosum again, and it added up that error, that total, and that's great. I'll just hit the Enter key on that. I'm going to do it one more time. So I can go to example 2 or example 1. It's the same sheet. And we can kind of do this all over again. So I'm going to click on the blank area here. On B9, I'm going to hit the Autosum function. But again, if I hit the tab key right now, that's going to push me to the right. And that's where I want to be for the next formula. So I'm going to hit the tab key to move to the right. I'm going to hit the Autosum again. I'm going to hit the tab key again because I want to go to the right. Autosum, hit the tab key again, go to the right. Now I want to come up to E5, hit the Autosum, and then now I want to use my Enter key because I want to go down one. So hit the Enter key, hit the Autosum, Enter, Autosum, and it grabbed the wrong area. So this is when you need to use your mouse and click on 209 and drag it across to kind of redefine the area. And then you'd hit your Enter key. Hit the Autosum again, and say, hey, I don't want that area. This is what I want to add up, is these 3 cells here. Enter. I can do my Autosum the last time and finish that up. So we're going to go through this again and again and again. So don't think this is the last time we do this, okay? But this is going to get a little more, yeah.
Now when I do on the line 7, when I go to take and I click the 209 and I drag it over and I hit enter, I get a circular reference warning.
That's because you went into the cell twice. Let me show you what you did, okay? What you did is you simply said Autosum like this. When you redefined it, you actually went not to D, but you went all the way to E.
Okay.
And then you hit return and you get this circular reference.
Okay.
So what you need to do is don't go all the way, go just to D, just from this to that spot there. Stop at D, because you can't sum itself, so you can't add itself to the sum. I'll redefine this one here, and I'll redefine it here. Okay, now go to our net profit. Now we're going to actually do a subtraction command now, where we're going to simply subtract the total sales from the expenses. You have to start in the net profit field, and then you press an equal sign. We're going to do a manual operation now. So you just simply go to the net profit on G5, press an equal sign, and then we're going to click on E5, click, press the minus key on the keyboard, and then press the expenses, click. And that's going to subtract E5 from F5. Enter. Then we're going to press an equal sign again, and we're going to say E6 minus F6. And then once you get that formula, you hit return. Then you'll go to the next field and you say equals, the same thing over and over again, equals E7 with a minus key, F7. Enter. And we're going to say equals E8 minus F8. And that's how you do a mathematical subtraction. Kind of just muddle through that and get through that a little bit. Again, we're going to do this over and over again. We're going to have a lot of practice for you. So I click on this average cells. This time I want to do an average of just the January, February, March data. So in order to do the average, you always click on the answer first. A lot of times people have the tendency to want to do this first. That's not what you do first. The first thing you do is you click in the answer. That's where you want to start. And then in the Autosum function, right next to it, there's a tiny little arrow. You want to click on that little arrow and choose the average function. So when I choose the average function this way, it grabs everything. I'm thinking, I don't want everything. I only want to average the January, February, and March data. So you would reselect that data, and then I go to the next blank cell, choose the little drop-down arrow, choose average, and it says, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to average that. I want to average these 3 cells here, which is B6 through D6. And then I'll go to the next blank cell and I do another average. And I want to click on 209 all the way to 264, enter, and do another average next to that. Go down like this. So just kind of work through it the best you can. If you was able to do some of them, that's good. Just move on to the next piece. And I guarantee you that by the end of the section, you will have a clear understanding of how this works. If you're a little fuzzy right now, that's okay. Now we're going to come down here where it says maximum. Here's your maximum and your minimum. I want to know what the maximum of these values are. So it looks like that 2009 is going to be the maximum number of that list. The minimum number looks like it's going to be 1704. But I want those answers to go in right here. So again, I'll say, instead of clicking on anything, I'll just click on this cell B11. I'll click the drop-down arrow next to the Autosum, and there's an option in there called max. It's the max function. So I say, here's my max function. I say, I don't want all that. I just want the data area, the people, Smith, Brown, Wallace, and Adam area. Now, either I hit the enter key or the tab key. If I hit the tab key, that will put me to the right, which will put me in the exact position where I need to do my next formula. So I would click on that new blank spot, click the drop-down arrow, choose max again, and it says, wait a minute, I don't want that. What I want is this information up on the top. Hit the tab key. I'm going to do another max, but I have to define what that area encompasses. Just kind of click on them and do the best you can with them. And if you get 1 or 2 of them, that's just fine, and we'll just move on because we have lots more things to do. Okay, so click on this new blank one under the minimum, and I want to know what the minimum number is of that list. So I would choose the minimum function, click on that min function, and it says, wait a minute, that's not what I want. What I want is this information here. So you have to redefine your area to tell it what the proper area is. Here's my min again, and I want to redefine that and tell it what the proper area is. And we're going to redefine it again and tell it what the proper area is. So there's your minimum and maximum values that you might use to extract information from the database, telling you what is the maximum value or the minimum value of each month. Now down on the bottom down here, you have District 1 and District 2. So this is, again, another subtraction technique where we're going to subtract the total sales minus the expenses. And so you always click in the answer. And then this is a manual operation. So we're going to press an equal sign. Now I am switching back and forth between a manual operation and an auto operation because you need to get familiar with when to use that particular operation. So I'm going to click on the 65004, press the minus key on the keyboard. It looks like I lost the cell there. See it? I can't see it in mine. So I'm just simply going to type it in, which is going to be B17, since I wasn't able to see that. So sometimes if you can't see it like that, you can type in the cell reference rather than clicking on it. Same with this one here. I'm going to go to press my equal sign, press that number, minus, and I lost that cell again too. So I'm going to call this C18. I should have put C17 equals that one minus, and I should have typed in C17. C18 is itself, and so that caused a circular reference. So if you kind of work that a little bit, if you're not done with it, that's okay. Let's go on to example 2. Now in example 2 is the exact same example, because I figured that why not get more practice with this, right? And that way, each time you do this, you're going to find yourself getting a little bit better each time. If I click on this little cell here under B9, we want to do an Autosum function. So you click on B9 on example 2. Make sure you go to example 2. Click on B9 and do an Autosum. And it looks like it worked fine. It grabbed the right information, correct? I'm going to hit the tab key because I want to go to the right. Click on your Autosum again, and you go, oh, it grabbed the right stuff. So I'm going to hit my tab key and hit the go to the right. Hit the Autosum again, and I'm going to hit the tab key and have it go to the right. Now I'm going to click on E5, and I'm going to do another Autosum, but I'm going to go down this time, so I'm going to use my Enter key. Autosum, Enter, Autosum, Enter, Autosum, oh wait, it grabbed the wrong area. So in that case, you have to say, I don't want that area. I'm going to have to click on 209 and drag it across to D. Don't go into E, just go stop at D. What if you have that problem? Hit the Enter key. Do the Autosum again, and you say, wait a minute, that's the wrong area again. I've got to click on B8 and drag it across. See it? Hit the Enter key. I can do another Autosum at the end. So again, practice, practice, practice. That's the key right now. The more we get our hands on this, the easier it's going to be. So I'm going to go to net profit here, and we're going to say equals. This is a manual operation. We want to subtract the total sales from the expenses. So click on your total sales here, press your minus key, and then click on the expenses. Hit the Enter key. And then now we're going to do it again. We're going to say equals, click on the E6, press the minus key on the keyboard, and then press F6, and press the Enter key. Do another equal sign, click, minus, click, equals, click, minus, click. And that's going to give you your profit. So again, if you're not totally keeping up with me, that's okay. Just keep plugging away at it and keep doing this, okay? If you have questions, you're welcome to stop and ask and say, how do we do that again? Or how do we do this again? Or I'm having trouble on G5 or G4 or whatever. Tell me what you're having trouble with, and we'll walk through that specific example. Average cells. This is where we're going to go to our little drop-down arrow here, and we're going to choose the average function. And we choose average, and it says, oh, wait a minute, I don't want all of that. What I want is just January, February, and March. That's the areas that I'm looking for. Enter. Now, I'm going to come back to example 1, and now we're going to take you to the next step. Once you create your formulas all finished up here, then we want to go through and check our formula. I asked somebody one time, I said, how do you know that your formulas are correct? And their answer is, they turned to me and they said, well, I think they're correct. You can't think they're correct. You can't hope they're correct. You have to know they're correct. And so I'm going to show you a technique right now that shows you how to correct yourself to check to make sure you do it. If somebody were to ask me to check their formulas, this is what I would do. So what I want to do is I'm going to keep one finger, hold it right above the escape key, and I'm going to double click on one of my answers. If I double click on that, see it did the range borders, what put this range around it? Then I'm going to hit the escape key on the keyboard. Double click again, make sure that it's bound properly, and then escape. double-click, escape. Then I'm going to come over to E5 and double-click on that one and make sure that's correct. And I'm going to go through each formula to make sure that each one is correct and hit the escape key after each one. If I go to my net profits and I double-click on that and I make sure that that looks correct, it's not grabbing the wrong row, escape, escape, escape. And then we've got our average cells, escape, 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 escape. Come down to the minimum max, double click, hit the escape, double click. If there's any errors that occurred in here, then you'll be able to find those errors as you're going through and doing this and checking yourself. So let me give you an example of what I mean. If I were to go through and did an autosum here, an autosum, 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 you see how this could be a problem here. This looks like it could be a problem. So when I double click on this one, that looks correct. That one looks correct, but that one's grabbing the wrong area. So that's what I'm saying. You're looking for problems. And the other problem I've seen sometimes where people would do something like this, where they would do something of this nature, where they would click on this one, and that looks correct, but they click on this one, and look, it's grabbing the wrong stuff. So then they'd have to go back and fix it. So what you're looking for are these kind of problems where it might recognize a problem. Now, this one here needs to be fixed because that one's grabbing the wrong area. I'm not going to delete it and start over. I'm going to click on that, hit my autosum right on top of it, and then redefine it this way. And I'll do another autosum on that one and redefine that one to fix those little problems. So again, I'm going to go back and click on all my formulas, hit the escape key, double-click, escape, double-click, escape, and make sure that everything is bound to the proper area. If you find one mistake, then you've been worth it doing it. Now, another technique you could use is if you were to select an area like this, now the sum of that selected area is 7490, right? But if you look at your status bar, it tells you the selection, the sum of the selected area. And so you see right down here it says sum of 7490. This one here is 7495, and this shows me the 7495. So you can select these areas and look at the answer down in the status bar. That's another way to check yourself. So let me give you an example of where I would use it. So say, for example, I had a 7490, 3456, and 7628. That one looks a little funny. That one doesn't look right. It doesn't sort of fit this pattern. So if I were to select that area, I can verify that total from that perspective. Now I'm going to go through and do an undo on that, Control Z to undo that back. Now if you see any sort of green arrows on these documents, that means you have a possible problem. We'll get into the green arrows a little bit later, but that is what we're trying to get at in terms of the correction techniques. Now there's a few other concepts I just want to kind of lay out here. One is if I type equals and type S, it actually lists all the functions that are available. So if I say SU, then these are all the functions that start with the letter SU. I could actually start my formula this way, double click on that sum function, and then I can go up and select what I want to add up. See, like this. That's another way to do it. Now let me jump over to the book to show you where all this is written at, where we go through to it. Okay, there is a section here called Formulas and Functions. I talk about the correction technique. Remember I said that when you click on your sum function, you've got to redefine this information. And so there's several ways to correct the formula if it grabs the wrong area. These are different ways to accept the formula. You press the Enter key, the Shift Enter, or the Tab key, or the Shift Tab. There's another one called Control Enter, which doesn't go anywhere. It stays in that same space. Here's some of the operators we're using, the plus and the minus, the multiply and the divide. Order of operations. Now, this is an important one, so let's take a look at the order of operations. So if I were to click here and set equals 5 plus plus 2 times 3. So 5 plus 2 is 7 times 3 is 21, correct? But it gives me an answer of 11. So what happens is that there's an order that occurs here, and this is something we learned back in high school, by the way. It's always going to do multiplication and division first. So in this case, it's going to do 2 times 3 is equal to 6, plus 5 equals 11. So that's the order of operations. You have to know that works. Now, if I were to do something like this, if I would put my parentheses around, it would be a little bit easier to understand. And that means that I'm saying do that first, but by default, it will do that first. So I'm just kind of walking through these things. How to manually enter formulas, just typing it in. Here's your manual selection. Here's your pull down button to do your averages. So we talk about the average function. Here's how to check your formulas. You double click on the formula, and then you press the escape key when you're done, and that will import out of it. There's this auto-calculate feature, which is down on the status bar. This is the status bar at the bottom, how you can auto-calculate this selected area. And here's some error messages that occur. So if you have an error message that pops up, make sure you read that error message very carefully. And you can edit formula. Now, this is where you would press the F2 key to actually go through and edit the formula if you need to modify the formula again. And here's your autocomplete. So those are a couple of concepts in it. The only one that I didn't really cover was the error message one. If I were to come here and set equals 5 plus times 3, if I want to do 5 plus times 3, well, I can't do 5 plus times 3, so that's going to cause an error. So what happens is you want to read the error very carefully because oftentimes it corrects the problem for you. Looks like it put it in 5 plus 3. And you think, oh, if that's what I want, then yeah, I want that. Then you just say yes, and it corrects it for you. You read the error message kind of carefully because it fixes the problem for you. Otherwise, you can say no, and you can redo it, of course. But you don't need to go back and do that over and over again. So those are the basic concepts of doing formulas and functions. Now, in the formulas, we want to get some practice with this. So let's come over to example 3. 3 is very similar to what we just talked about. But here we've got some totals here. We're going to come up with our totals for our quarters. We're going to come up with our totals over here for the quarters. Looks like we're going to do some averages down here for the quarters. We're going to do some net profits and some more averages on the side. So we're going to click on, go to example 3, click on B9, and we're going to do a total for the quarter. So you simply click on that field, and you come up to your Autosum function, and it looks like it grabbed the proper quarter. Now, can you hit my Enter key or my Tab key? I'm going to hit my Tab key because I want to go to the right and do the next formula. So do the Autosum again, Tab, Autosum, Tab, Autosum, Tab. Go to my total sales on F5, do an Autosum, Enter, Autosum, Enter, Autosum, and whoop, it grabbed the wrong area. So you've got to watch this very carefully. The best time to find it is while you're doing it. So let's talk about the old concept of a needle in a haystack. How do you find a needle in a haystack? Well, when you first drop the needle, is the best time to find it. The minute you take your eyes off it, you're never going to find it again. When is the best time to find a formula error? When you're doing it. So we want to go back and redefine this and tell it this is the right area that I want to add up. And then hit the Enter key. Then you do another Autosum and it grabbed the wrong area again. So you want to redefine this by coming down here and redefining it this way. Okay? Then you can do an Autosum again and that finish that one off. See? Now we come over and do our net profits we want. Then we'll do our averages. Then we'll come down to the bottom here and do our averages down at the bottom. So do our net profit, we're going to say equals total sales minus the expenses. Now, if you're a little bit more familiar with this, then just continue on. Go on into example 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. Just keep moving on. But just move at your own pace right now. So I want to spend the next 20 minutes or so just going through this, okay, and getting a little bit of hands-on experience. Then we'll change gears and show you some easier ways to do this stuff, some more streamlined techniques. Somebody mentioned that earlier. Then we'll sort of be ready to break for the day, for lunch, and then we'll adjourn next week. But I'm going to give you a bunch of homework assignment to do, of things to practice, and to bring questions back to the class. So I'm going to press my equal sign, that minus the expenses, enter. Press an equal sign. You've got to get this pattern up, this process of when do I do a manual operation? When do I do an auto operation? You have to kind of remember when to switch these operations out. Do an average function. On the average function, we're going to choose our drop-down arrow, choose our average. I don't want the average of everything. I only want the average of the quarters. So I'm going to click right in the middle of quarter 1 and drag it across to 4. Hit the enter key. And we're going to say average again. I'm going to redefine the average on that one. Enter. Do another average. And I'm going to redefine that area. And do another average. And redefine that. And now I can do the averages at the bottom. So the average is not going to include the totals. So I'm going to do my average. I want to do just this area right here. The tab key, because I want to go to the right. Do another average. Reselect it. Hit the tab key. Do the average. Do the area. Hit the tab key. Do the average. And then head down this way. So again, just working through these a step at a time. Now, if you're very experienced with this, move on. If you're not that experienced with it, slow down and take your time to get the process down. Remember, you always click in the answer first. Then you would add up the values from that point forward. So that is the process of creating formulas and functions. I'm going to move on to example 4. Example 4 is going to do some addition functions. It's going to do some sum functions. It's going to do a subtraction function. And it's going to do a multiplication function. Any questions on that? Let's keep working forward on it.
I hear what you said last. You dropped out on mine. When you got to the example 4, for some reason my audio dropped out and I didn't hear what you said.
Well, all I said was just continue going through it. You're going to do some additions here. And then you're going to do some sums here. And then you do some subtractions. Then you can do some multiplications. And then some divisions at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
So do the sum function. You can either use the sum function or you can use the addition function. So I'm going to say equals. Click on B2 plus, and it looks like I lost B3. So in that case, I'm going to type in B3 because I wasn't able to select it on my screen.
Oh, okay.
In this case, I can do this one here again. I can do equals the 3 and then plus. I lost my D3, so I'm going to type in D3 since I wasn't able to see that. And
Okay.
that's to do with the resolution on the screen. Now, I could use a sum function here if I wanted to, because why? Because all I'm doing is I'm adding up these numbers. So I could use a sum function there if I wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
Down here, we want to do some sum function, but I see I created little problems in here.
Right.
If you click on this blank spot here and you do an Autosum, you think, wait a minute, there's a problem here. Now, you can correct this several ways. One way would be to grab this corner right there. See that little double arrow that pops up? And
Right.
to sort of redefine the area. That would be the other way to go about doing this. See? The second way would be to select 6, hold the mouse down, and drag it down to 12.
Got it.
Now, when you're all done, you want to go back and double-click and hit escape, double-click, escape, and make sure that it looks like it's grabbing the proper area.
Copy.
And then we're going to come down to the subtraction, and we're going to say equals this 22, which is B23, minus B24. Now, the reason why it's doing this to me is simply because these fields are too wide right here. So if I were to make this field a little longer, like this, stretch this out a little bit like this, they're just too tight is what's happening. If I were to stretch them out like this, then now when I did my autosum, or my subtraction here, equals that number minus that number. See, it's not showing me a problem. But my screen was a little bit too tight is what was happening.
Okay.
So because they're a little wider now, I didn't have that problem. But if you got the problem, it doesn't matter. You can just type in the reference, the cell reference, rather than trying to fix it. Sometimes it's faster just to get the problem fixed. Then we're going to do some multiplications here. This is going to say equals the cell here times the cell here times, and I lost my next one, so I'm going to type in B31. All right, 31? Yep, 31. So I just type it in there if I can't see it for some reason. So again, the name of the game is practice. Is just get a little bit more hands-on practice. Go ahead and spend a few minutes looking at this. Is there any questions anybody has about anything? While everybody's doing it, I can kind of answer individual questions about a specific one you're trying to do. Just tell me the sheet name and the cell reference, and then we'll kind of review that one again. So if anybody has a question, you're welcome to ask that question now, or say, could you show me example 2, cell E5? Just give me a reference, and I can go there and I'll run through that example again. Again, the name of the game at this point is getting more hands-on experience with this. Because I'd like you to go back after the class and go through these exercises again. But I need you to actually go through and check your answers. When you finish a formula, you need to go back and double-click, escape, double-click, escape, and check your answer. The other thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go back to the book. Now, I've designed the book so that it's pretty easy to follow. So what I need you to do is go through these concepts. This is considered a concept called formula correction. And you think, oh, I remember talking about that, but I need to refresh my memory on that a little bit. So then you might read a little bit about what I say. Accepting formulas. Oh, I remember the enter and the tab key. That's not an issue. So then you move on. Operators. Oh, yeah, I know the operators. I know you have a plus and a minus divide. So you can walk through this book very quickly, looking at just the concept name. If you're familiar with the concept, then move on. But if you're not familiar with it, then you might want to read a little bit or maybe try a few of my little exercises I put in here. So the idea of that is to bring your retention upward. So if the retention rate in these classes are from a 40 to a 60% range, by going back through the book in this manner, you will actually bring that retention up a little bit because it will say, oh, I remember that, or I remember that. You don't need to take notes for this class. All the notes have been taken for you. And I take you and I show you step by step. Here's your Autosum function. Here is your pull down function. This is your averages and things like that. So you can run through those. Now, underneath of this little exercise, I went through and showed you step-by-step exercises of how to do this. Here's sheet 1, here's sheet 2, and I went through and showed you how to actually add these up, but I walked through this step-by-step. And you don't need to go through this step-by-step like this, but if you're reading the book for the first time and you don't have the class, then you need something to guide you through it. Then I went through example 2. This is example 3. And I went through and showed you how to build that up step by step. And then I went through example 4, and I went through this step by step, and then I went through example 5. So if you get to one of these examples and you're not sure exactly what to do, then go to my little procedure and walk through the procedures to see what I suggest how to do these various things. Or maybe you get to a certain cell, like this one here is interesting, that you think, well, what do I do here? How do I do this? Well, there's the procedures. This says the first step is to create the yearly salary. So that I give you the month salary, but I don't give you the yearly salary. So what I do is I basically go back and I take you through this step by step. And then I said, oh, do the Autosum function. So click in this cell and do your Autosum function. See, so I go through the whole thing step by step. So that is going to be example number 5, I think it is. 6. So here, I just showed you in the book that you can come up with your yearly salary. How do you do that? You multiply that together, you get 12. If you don't know how to do the yearly salary, then you can jump back over to procedures, and I walk you through it step by step, and then you'll get it, you'll understand. Maybe you know what to do, you just don't know what I'm asking you to do. Down here, some people have this problem, this count function. And you get to the count and you think, we didn't talk about count in the class. If you go over to the book, you can see that here's the count function right here, see? So I say, do what? Use the count function to calculate the total. So you go to your monthly salary and your yearly salary in cells B9 and cell C9, and the count function can be found in the Autosum drop-down area. The idea of that is you can actually add up those values. That's kind of what the procedures are going to do, is it takes you through each one of these steps to accomplish this.